Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 10 of Astrid Asks. Yes, I know it's been a while and it's in a new home. Uh, but yeah, I finally had somebody that replied to my DMs to an interview, surprisingly. But yeah, I'm really excited to have you here today, Billy. I've been following you for a little bit now, so I wanted to get to know you better, and I thought this was a good way to do it. Before we start, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I'm getting nervous. I haven't done it in a couple like weeks slash months, so I feel like it's my first interview all over again, even though it's not. um, but yeah, I did research on you so I could get some questions going. I have questions from a couple friends of mine that wanted to ask you something too, so I figured I will include those in here too later on after mine.
Okay, perfect.
One thing that I dug up from you by watching other interviews and doing research is that you started as a wrestling photographer. How did you get started doing that?
So I started as a wrestling photographer because of my dad, whose mouse wrestling adventures. Um, but he started shooting pictures at shows, and I got his hand-me-down camera, and I was like, oh, I want to do it. And it got me to be more involved with wrestling, and I was like, oh, I can still learn about this and this and this, because my whole goal was to be a wrestler. But I was still so young that I was like, I can figure it out. Let me do what I can at this age. Um, and I just started shooting promo pictures and getting to know people. So that was like my into wrestling. And it was just because of my dad who loved wrestling and he was like, I want to take photos of it. So I got his hand-me-downs and I was like, I'm going to use this as my avenue for wrestling.
Like, what was that moment, or who was it, if you could say both of them? But when was that moment that you realized that you wanted to train to become a professional wrestler?
um, so it was just me growing up watching it. As a little kid, when Mouse came into my life, we just started watching wrestling and SCI together when I was little. And I would joke that I either wanted to become a crime investigator and like that type of thing, or I wanted to become a wrestler. And wrestling just stuck with me. And I was like, yeah, I want to be a wrestler. And my mindset never changed. Um, and I think it was just because that's what I was around all the time and it was fun. So I was like, oh, I want to do this because this is fun. And it's stayed fun as I've trained and beat my body up. I still enjoy it. There's so much in wrestling that's so fun and entertaining for me on like both sides, just watching it. And like sometimes it's very hard for me to watch wrestling because I'm like, my wrestling brain is like, what is this? Is this right? Is this wrong?
Mhm.
Ooh, how can I make this into me? But there's also times where I can watch a match and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just being a fan. I did it yesterday
Mhm.
when me and Mouse ran a show. We ran a show called Bright Night. And I finally, at the end of the day, after like setup and all the craziness, and I wrestled twice, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and enjoy the show now because I was like, there's matches that I want to see because I helped book
Mhm.
them, and I was like, I want to see my friends wrestle. And I watched Ace Perry versus the World, and it was such an entertaining match for me. I was like just having fun. And I was just like right next to the ring, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, is that Billy?" And I was like, "Yeah, let me enjoy this show."
Like, now that you mentioned about the training part, how was that aspect for you when you started training?
I really enjoyed my training because people were very, very patient with me. I was shocked that it was able to happen so early. I started training when I was 13, and it all popped up because I joked with Pondo, who's the promoter for Girl Fight, and I was shooting pictures for his show, and so was Mouse, and we kept joking about it. Oh, Pondo, you gonna train me? Blah blah blah. And he's like, I know a guy. And he introduced me to Two Tough Tony, who runs a training school in Indiana. And I started training at Grindhouse, and I just loved my trainers. They were very, very patient with me. And it was like I might not get stuff right away, but they were able to like take their time. And I felt bad because I was like, oh, I'm taking away from everybody else's time. But in the long run, I was very, very appreciative of like them taking their time with me and just making sure I got everything down. And when I was ready, they made sure I was ready.
And now that you like, even though you've been doing it for a little while now, but at the same time you're so young, do you have any advice for anybody that wants to start out in wrestling though?
Um, I would just say be a good person because I feel like that gets you so far in wrestling. Like, just be loving and caring towards everybody. And that's for like real life and wrestling. As long as you're here to like help others and just be kind, I was like, it gets you so much further. I was like, I might not have the nicest things in my brain all the time, but it's like I can step back from the moment. I'm like, I don't need to say these things. I can be frustrated, but let me step away and not cause problems. And just being nice and interacting with people. I was like, I love wrestling so much, and all these other people that I'm around love wrestling. So we have something in common. So it's just knowing, like, be a nice person and talk about something you both enjoy. And I feel like you get those connections with people, and your opportunities come so much faster.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree on that. I feel like it's one of those things that you realize that the more supportive and like the better you are as a person, the more it is and the better it is for you in the long run with people, and you become a more like a people person. I've learned from me at least, because I have a lot of social anxiety, but little by little I've met more and more people, especially meeting people like this, like I'm doing with you right now, and I've gotten to the point that it's helped me at work and become a little bit more social than I used to be before as well.
hmm I will definitely say I've always been a very social person, because I love interacting with people. Um, but wrestling has definitely made me open up more because I'm like, I gotta talk to people. I don't get a choice anymore. And it's kind of crazy that like so many people that I've never met before just love me and the person I am. And I'm like, you don't even know me. Why do you like me? And it's crazy that I've made so many connections with people that I don't even know. And it's like mind-boggling to me in a way. And I was like, I'm happy for it, but it's also like, why is this happening?
Yeah, and one thing I realized, I think it's from your mom's Twitter account, if I'm not mistaken, that came up on my timeline because you liked it too. It's just picture of you, like I think you were sleeping probably like in the back of a car and or something like that, like a day or two ago. And it just
Mhm.
made me like think is like, how do you balance like going to school and then doing wrestling on top of it, and just like if you're constantly training, everything that you have that you're juggling, how do you balance it all?
Um, it's a lot. I will say that just honestly, I get stressed out sometimes. But I'm very, very lucky that I have a great support system. My parents have worked really, really hard for me since I've started wrestling and even before that, just making sure I was happy and enjoying what I was doing. And they can see that this is what I enjoy and they're going to do everything they can to help me. Um, and I'm very, very lucky that they've built me into a person that can basically handle anything at this point.
Mhm.
Um, but just having a great support system. I've been very lucky with a lot of my teachers and my family and my friends, just getting around other good people. My mom literally helps me run everything in my life. She was like, "Okay, you're at this show, and this show this weekend. This is how you're gonna get there." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Thanks. One less thing I have to worry about." And then when it comes to like my merchandise, I only will be like pitching ideas and I'm like, "This is my idea." And then she'll go and help like make it happen. And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you." I wasn't focused on that because I'm focused on school because that's the one thing I had to worry about. My mom's always been like, if you don't do well in school, we're taking away wrestling. And I was like, okay, I'll go
Yeah.
knock this out and then I'll come and have fun on the weekends.
Yeah, because one thing I noticed, like at least from the people I've seen, you may have the parents that are supportive and they just go like, "I support you with your training," but to have like you mentioned, like your mom help you behind the scenes of like, "This is how you're gonna do this today, and this is what it's going on for like your agenda for this week." How is that for you having your family so involved in like not only but in your schedule but in your brand as a whole?
um, I love it and hate it. It's like a little mixture of both. And it's
Mhm.
like I agree with my mom on some things and I was like, yeah, yeah, this is great. And then other times I'm like, no, no. And it definitely is like sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish they would just leave me alone. But that's just my teenager brain. Um,
Mhm.
and I know they have like good intentions. I was like, I just don't agree with this. So it's like a good mixture. And I was like, I feel like everything's supposed to happen for a reason. My hippie brain, I was like, yeah, it'll be fine. We'll work it out. Um, but my parents have definitely helped. And there's been times where I'm like, we don't need this.
Yeah. And one thing that I keep thinking, because I, like I said, I looking at your Twitter, I see you having so many bookings, and I wonder, how do you stay motivated to keep going and grinding at this so often as well?
Just because I love it. I love wrestling. It's definitely like my motivation during the week will go down because I'm like, I just want to go wrestle. But I know that I have to do these things to go wrestle. So wrestling is my motivation. It's like I feel like you work towards something you enjoy, you're always motivated. So it's like having this goal. And like during my week, I'm like, okay, if I knock out the schoolwork, if I go to work, knock that out, I'm one step closer to wrestling. And it's definitely hard for me sometimes because I'm just tired. But it's one of those things I will go rest and then it's like, okay, we got to get back to it.
Mhm. One thing I did want to get your reaction on is just, maybe it was 2 days ago now. At the time of this recording, I would say, we had the PWI Women's 150 that just came out, and you went from being from being 104 to being number 52. So how was that your reaction, seeing like that ranking, such a drastic change from one year to another?
It's definitely very motivating because I was like, oh my God, okay, I'm actually, because living as a wrestler, I feel like sometimes I don't feel the growth that I have because I'm just living
Mhm.
in the moment. And definitely seeing like that, it shows me that, okay, I am improving, even though sometimes in my brain I'm like, okay, I'm just doing the same thing. Um, but it's definitely one of those keys of like, you're not where you were last year, you're somewhere different and it's going up.
Mhm.
Um, so it's definitely one of those things where I'm like, okay, I get it. Okay, now I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So I need to keep doing what I'm doing so I grow
Mhm.
to be better next year. I was like, one of my goals is definitely to keep cutting my numbers in PWI. I was like, I'm going to be ranked super high one day, and that's my goal. I was like, never to go down.
Yeah, and I did want to congratulate you on that, because it's incredible. Think like, not only you at such a young age, being 52 now in the PWI already, just incredible to see that. And I bought the digital version so I can use it for my podcast with my friend Mel. So when I saw that, I was like, I'm so happy for her. That I like how you can see they tell you what number you had the previous year. So just I kept thinking that's just an incredible change, because it's like me. I feel like when I people tell me, "Oh, you're incredible what you're doing," I don't see it in myself. And then you see something like this, because that kind of feedback that you get from other people, and you see that and you think, I'm not doing as bad as I thought I was doing. And it just shows you that, that time that you're actually improving, or you're doing great at what you're doing, which is amazing. So I definitely want to congratulate you on that, because it's incredible to think about.
Thank you so much. It's definitely crazy in my brain because I was like, oh my God, because even in like the regular PWI, I moved up so much and I was like, oh my God, okay, I'm actually doing good.
Yeah. One thing I did want to get your insight of, when it comes also to women's wrestling, like even as a whole, like I feel like you face so many people already, but what is something you want to, or you're hoping to accomplish in women's wrestling as a whole?
Just make it a better place than what I found it. I want to help everybody, and I was like, wrestling gets better when you help other people. I was like, someone might not be as good as me, and I can bring them up to my level and I can give them the knowledge I have. And then the women above me, I'm going and looking for their feedback and what they can give me so I can get better. Um, and I feel like you wrestling is a place that we can all help each other, even though it is a competitive business. Wrestling is a business and I have to think about myself, but it doesn't get better unless I help all the other people around me. Competition is good, but I don't need to tear people down to make myself better.
Yeah. And one thing that, like, I mentioned a little bit earlier, is like you have so many bookings from what I've seen, and you travel so many places. Is there anywhere you haven't traveled to that you would like to travel next?
Ooh, definitely internationally. I want to travel across the seas. I just feel like wrestling is different in all different places. Japan and the UK and Australia. Um, and like I've gotten to interact with a lot of different people from those places, and I'm like, oh my God, they have like a completely different brain than I have because this is what I'm around all the time. But I would love to learn more wrestling because wrestling's different in other places. And I was like, I can. my goal in wrestling is always to keep learning and know I want to have as much knowledge as possible. I was like, it's different everywhere and it keeps evolving.
Yeah, and another thing for those of you that don't know, you're one of those people that have gotten in, been a name in intergender wrestling as well, not only just like women's wrestling as a whole. So, like, did you have a moment that you realized that you told yourself, "I want to try and be a part of intergender wrestling," or it was it a kind of moment or somebody that made you realize that you want to pursue something like this?
It was more I wanted the opportunity to get better, and it was hard when I was wrestling the same people over and over. Because there is like a limited amount of women in wrestling, and I hope it continues to grow and grow. And there's more guys in wrestling than women. And just having the opportunity to wrestle guys, it definitely brought me up. Just because I was wrestling different opponents and I was learning from different people. So there was never a moment where I was like, oh, I want to do intergender. It was more, I want to go learn and wrestle a different person. So I didn't get stuck or like stagnant with like what I was doing.
Yeah. And I believe it was your mom as well. Her Twitter account. She posted not too long ago a picture of you dressed up as the the Bailey hugger. I would say the. So after seeing that, I was inspired. And I wanted to ask if you were ever in attendance for any of those NXT moments that are like so big for NXT, or if you just saw one of those moments that just like shocked you in NXT when you were watching it.
I used to go to like NXTs all the time, and one like really, really special moment for me, and it wasn't really a huge show. We went down to Florida, and NXT was doing like their house shows, and at the time I had a cast, and so did Bailey, and I just remember her like going around and she saw mine and signed it, and it was just a really like wholesome moment and it made me really, really happy as a kid. And I look back at it now and I was like, that was so sweet of her. She didn't have to do that. And she still took her time and was like, oh, I'm going to do this. And it was her just running around the ring and she just stopped for me. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
um, so that was like a really like cute moment in my brain. And it's one of the things I look back at. There's like a picture of me and my mom, or my mom took the picture of me and Bailey like with our cast and we're like, oh.
Mm. You're so cute though. Like it makes me think back of Izzy because I am from Florida, so I attend a lot of the NXT shows, especially when they had the Iron Woman match and when
Mhm,
Sasha took the little bow from Izzy and just started mocking him in the ring. And it's one of those moments that you don't think about when you think about it, and it's like, dang, like Sasha being such a heel, but on top of it, it was so iconic and so memorable too. But
mhm,
even at the end of it, when the match itself was over and they gave her her flower, she gave them to Izzy. That obviously we couldn't see it because we want to break that heel character on screen. But it's those moments that you like you can't forget about them because it just involves children. It's like it
mhm,
doesn't happen often when you see them in TV somehow.
mhm. I completely agree.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to get back to that you mentioned at the beginning, but at least when it comes to wrestling, when is the most helpful or most beneficial piece of advice you have received so far?
Um, just keep trying because there's been multiple times where I get very, very frustrated with like wrestling, and it's like I'm not a very athletic person, and like a lot of the things I've done, I was like I just had to do with repetition, and there's still like some things that I'm like I can't do that, I can't do that. Um, and it's just having the idea of like you can keep doing it, keep doing it. And definitely having the people there to like keep supporting you and keep doing stuff. Because me and my parents joke about all the time. I'm one of those people. I'm terrified of backflips. I was like, I can't see where I'm going. I don't want to know. So there's always that joke of like, my dad's like, you can do a moonsault. And I was like, but I can't. I can't go backwards. He's like, you just gotta try. You just gotta try. And I definitely feel like when you put your heart into something and you keep trying something, anything is possible. As cheesy as that sounds, it truly is.
No, you may think it sounds cheesy, but it happened to me as well from my aspect of my end of it too, because I kept thinking I will never do anything like this. Even though I wanted to do interviews and I wanted to get out there and do content, but I kept thinking somebody's gonna make fun of my voice, somebody's gonna make fun of my accent, somebody's gonna tell me you're a girl, you don't know anything about wrestling. And I was thinking I'm not gonna even last a month. That's what I was thinking about, like when it came to content. And I've been doing it now for a little bit over a year, and I love it so much I don't want to stop anytime soon. But it's one of those things like once you give it that try, once you dip your toes into when you realize this is what you like, you'll find a way to keep going with it. And it's exciting when you find things like this.
I completely agree. Yeah, it's definitely once you find what you enjoy, even though it's scary sometimes, um, it's definitely worth it in the end.
Yeah, I did want to include. I had questions of three of my friends that I wanted to include as my community questions before I let you go. One of them is my friend Bobby. He said, "Who's your favorite opponent that you have wrestled against so far?"
Nick Wayne. Nick Wayne is one of my favorite people I've wrestled. And I think it's more because of our friendship outside of wrestling. Um, it was just we have always been like the kids, but we're always here trying to prove a point. And he was probably one of my favorite matches of this year. I wrestled him on his birthday, and it was so much fun. And it was a great moment for both of us. Um, and it was right after I wrestled Ruby Soho, and I drove from Iowa to New Jersey, and I was like, I'm here, Nick, let's go. I was exhausted, but I had so much
Mhm.
fun with him. It's truly like when you're around good people, and Nick is one of the best humans I've met. He's way too nice. I say it all the time. He's just a sweetheart of a human being who's like, I don't get it, Nick. You're way too nice, and you're always too nice.
I have three from my friend Carl from Turnbuckle Studios. He was the first one would be thoughts on Black Label Pro giving you a home and a start.
I'm so thankful for Black Label. They definitely, Mikey used me as a photographer before I wrestled. And he was like, I still see you as that little kid. It's hard for me to give you this opportunity to wrestle because it's like, oh my God, what happens if she gets hurt? What happens if this? And he was like, I just would feel so guilty. But he finally grew up to the idea of me wrestling. He finally watched my matches and he's like, okay, she can take care of herself. I'll do it. And I'm very, very happy with everything Black Label has done and helped me with my journey in wrestling.
For his second question, he was asking how has Sami Callihan helped your career?
Sami Callihan is one of the smartest people I've talked to in wrestling. And he's done so much, and he truly wants wrestling to be better. He's the promoter for Wrestling Revolver, and he gave me matches with Ruby Soho. I've gotten to wrestle people with Jessica, and um, just being around those people, it truly helps you grow. And he was just trying to help me from the beginning when he met me. And um, definitely, I'm very, very thankful for everything he does for me and wrestling. Um, he's a very, very smart guy. And I feel like not enough people take advantage of Sammy and like the knowledge that he could truly drop on to people because he's done so much in his career.
And his last question, or I guess for your comment, is like, what is your relationship or like with Roxy or Roxanne Perez for those that watch
Mhm.
NXT?
So I met Roxy on my first trip to Texas, and I immediately was like, I love this girl. And we just became really quick friends, and then, I've been very, very happy with everything she's been doing on NXT. And I think we're just good friends, to put it simply. And I hope our paths cross again. I think she's an amazing wrestler, and I can't wait to be in a ring with her again. I was like, there's so many women that I've seen like just grow up and do other things in our paths go different ways, but it's still great seeing them doing great things.
And my last community questions from my good friend Ed. He was asking, what are you wishing for the future of women's wrestling that and what it would look like for you?
Um, just more. I want more. I want more women's wrestling everywhere. Um, and I honestly feel like we're getting to a point where there's so many just all women's promotions. And I feel like I want more women in wrestling. Because like the amount of women compared to guys, I'm like, I want more women falling in love with wrestling and to enjoy it and be happy and just want to go train, want to do this. So my goal is to inspire more females to join it.
Before I let you go, where can the people find you? What else do you have coming up? Because I know you're a busy gal, so you're booked. I will say every day almost it feels like. So, what do you have coming up soon, and what are your social media so that people can find you later on?
This Sunday I'm at Summit Pro Wrestling in Indiana. And if you want to check out more of my upcoming dates, I'm always posting on social media where I'll be. And all of my social media is at Billie Starkz, Billie, and then Starks is Starkz.
Well, for me, you can find me on my Twitter, which is Astrid Bizarre, as it's there. Hopefully, this will be released sometime next week. But for those, I'm hoping to continue on with the series like I did before. And yeah, I appreciate everybody watching. And Billy, thank you for your time and coming to chat with me for a few minutes. I know you're a busy gal, so
Thank you so much for having me.
thank you. Well, everybody, thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.